This is Fresh Air. I'm Terry Gross. James Marsden has had a long career in Hollywood, playing the romantic interest in many comedies and dramas, but doesn't always end up with the girl. Recently, he's taken on some other kinds of roles. In the HBO series Westworld, he was Teddy, one of the android cowboys in the Western-themed adventure park that goes wrong. And he did double duty in the Netflix show Dead to Me, playing semi-identical brothers. In his new series, Jury Duty, he has a completely different sort of role, a satirical version of himself. Marsden spoke with our producer, Sam Brigger.
The new show Jury Duty, available on Amazon Freevee, has its roots in the old TV show Candid Camera, where surprising and funny things happened to unwitting bystanders and hidden cameras captured their reactions. In Jury Duty, a regular guy named Ronald Gladden has agreed to participate in a documentary about the experience of being a juror. He goes to the LA courtroom, is picked as the jury foreperson, and follows along the court proceedings. There's a small film crew following him and the other jurors around. What Ronald doesn't know is that the whole thing is fake. The entire courthouse has been fitted with hidden cameras, and everyone there except him is an actor. The other jurors, the judge, the lawyers, the plaintiff, the bailiff, everybody. And a lot of them are acting really weird and doing funny things. It's all highly improvised. The camera captures Ronald trying to navigate these strange people and circumstances, and he does so amazingly well, with kindness and grace, even when he finds out he's going to be sequestered for 2 weeks with his fellow jurors at a hotel. Jury Duty might have been a cruel show, but it's not. Ronald is not the butt of an elaborate joke. He's actually the hero of the show. The only person he recognizes among the other jurors is the actor James Marsden, who's also been summoned for jury duty. This James Marsden is a self-absorbed and egotistical, satirical version of the Hollywood star played by James Marsden, our guest today. Marsden has been in a lot of movies and TV shows over his career, including Enchanted, 27 Dresses, 4 X-Men movies, 2 Sonic the Hedgehog movies, The Notebook, and 30 Rock. But before we get to that, let's hear a clip from the new show Jury Duty. Here the potential jurors are sitting in the court waiting room, and Ronald realizes that the man sitting next to him is James Marsden.
Dude, that's where I know you from. You're an X-Man. Oh. Dude, I've been thinking that this entire time.
I didn't ask your name, forgive me.
Ronald.
Yeah, James.
Pleasure.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah, I was trying to pinpoint it because I was like, I've seen you somewhere.
Yeah, but I've been in like so much stuff. It's like X-Men and Hairspray and Enchanted and Westworld and stuff like that. But Notebook.
Oh shit, you're in Westworld?
Yeah.
I know him from The Notebook.
He's in The Notebook? Nuh-uh. What is he in The Notebook?
The other guy.
He's the other guy?
The guy she really should have got together with.
Oh my God, I haven't seen that movie in so long. I didn't realize.
I was looking at his socks over here. It looked like it said Sonic. And I'm in that movie Sonic. And I was like, does he have Sonic socks
Oh
on?
shit, you're in the movie Sonic?
Yeah.
That's the one with the new one with Jim Carrey, right?
Yeah.
I heard that was not a good movie.
That's a scene from Jury Duty with Ronald Gladden and my guest, James Marsden. James Marsden, welcome to Fresh Air.
Thank you, Sam. Happy to be here.
It's great to have you here. So I just want to ask you first, when you heard about what the show was going to be about, did you have any reservations about doing it?
I only had reservations. Yes, I did, of course. It was a very ambitious conceit. I was approached by my friend David Bernad, who is a producer of The White Lotus. We've done a couple of projects together before. And he asked if I'd be interested in getting on a Zoom with Lee Eisenberg and Gene Stupnitsky at The Office, who I was a huge fan of that show. And he gave me sort of a basic one-liner idea of the concept of the show, which is basically we're taking the Truman Show and we're dropping it in the middle of jury duty. Mm-hmm. And I said, okay, well, let's expound on that. Let's what's my part? What am I doing? And I got excited about all of the sort of improvisational element of the show and the sort of live theater part of the whole thing. So I'm a big Christopher Guest fan. I loved the Larry Sanders Show. I love, obviously, Curb Your Enthusiasm and everything Larry David does. So I was always looking for an opportunity to get in a room and play with improvisational actors. So that was exciting.
You haven't done that much of that, right, in the past?
No, I haven't. I mean, not Not true improvisational shows that's woven into the DNA of the show by nature. No, on Dead to Me, Liz Feldman allows us to play occasionally, but the scripts are, it's all written and it's very tight, and usually we don't need to improv. But something like this was so unique, so different and original, and I was enthusiastic about being a part of something like this, but also apprehensive because I didn't know if it was going to work. I had many reservations. And the biggest one was the wild card of this one human being who's being dropped into this situation that is all fake and manufactured, and what that's going to be like, and what's he going to be like, and is this even something that is ethically right to do? Play with someone's human experience over the course of 3 weeks of their life. But I made it clear that it was important to me that I didn't want to be a part of a prank show. I was not interested in being cruel or mean-spirited at all. And they said, no, we're not interested in doing that either. What we're doing is we're creating a hero's journey for somebody. And what we're surrounding him with are this cast of bizarre, eccentric weirdos, and hopefully carving out a path for him to become the leader at the end and have his 12 Angry Men moment where he inspires us all and unites us, and then we pull the curtain back and celebrate him as a human being, and hopefully
show him what it's all about.
Show him what it was all about, and hopefully he takes that in stride. But who knows how he's going to react? So the sort of unknown was appealing to me, but it was also terrifying.
So when you were thinking about making this satirical version of yourself, did you think about things about yourself that you don't really like very much and amplified them, or did you come up with like a completely different character? Like, what did you base that person on?
To me, it was just the idea of lampooning the cliche, entitled, self-absorbed, egocentric Hollywood actor was really exciting to me, because I could do it as myself, and hopefully by the end of it, everyone would know that I'm satirizing that character, and it's not really me. I do this kind of bit on set sometimes when we're sitting around waiting for the cameras to be set up. I'm not talking about Jury Duty. I'm talking about every other movie or TV show I've ever been a part of. And I just think it's a funny little bit to like pretend like you're the actor who is trying to be affable and like self-deprecating, but really what comes through is the the narcissism and the conceited nature of, it's that whole thing of like I would do a little bit on set. It'd be like, I don't think people really truly understand how difficult it is to be an actor. I know there are really tough and dangerous vocations out there, but I don't think people really know how hard it is. I'm sorry, the coffee is a little lukewarm.
These ice cubes are too cold.
Right. Right. And so, I don't know. I just thought the idea of sending up that sort of trope and playing with it, and I'm doing it in my own shoes, was an exciting, funny thing for me to explore. And, and there's something about playing someone who thinks that the world worships them when they actually don't at all, and watching that person, get humiliated, fall on their face, get embarrassed by the lack of enthusiasm in the room. And this James Marsden is always trying to get the conversation steered back to him, because that's the only conversation he knows, and it's the only conversation he's interested in.
Right. Let's talk a little bit about the hero of the show, the real person, Ronald Gladden. Like, so much relied on this guy. Like, either it could have been a terrible experience for him, or like, he could have turned out to be a horrible person. Mm-hmm. It was a real tightrope walk, I think, to probably choosing that.
No,
right
it was.
Person.
And there were a number of things that could have happened that would have torpedoed this whole endeavor. And we got really, really lucky with him. Mostly with him, because he just is one of the kindest, empathetic, wonderful human beings that I've ever met, and he kind of took it all in stride and laughed it off, and all the absurdity, the crazy things that are happening in the courtroom. So they did an amazing job of finding him. And then we got to know him on day one, right? When the cameras started rolling. And I had only had a few days of rehearsal because I was finishing up Party Down at the time. And the other cast members had another week and a half of rehearsals because it was very strategic very choreographed. Where do you sit? It's just intricate. And I remember thinking, just sweating bullets, just like, I don't think I'm ready for this. I don't know if I'm going to be funny. I don't want to be the one to blow the whole thing.
Yeah.
But all they told us was, his name's Ronald Gladden. He's from San Diego. He's a solar panel contractor or something like that. And he's 6'6", and have fun. And then, the scripts say this, and this is what happens, but you kind of had to be like water and flow and pivot when you needed to, because no one knew what he was going to say. No one knew if he would even recognize who I was.
Yeah. Well, he doesn't quite at first, right?
Like, no, he doesn't, which is
kind
of comedy gold.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's a great part of that clip where he basically, you say, I was in Sonic, and he's like, oh, I heard that's a bad movie. Like, you must have wanted to crack up at that point.
I did, but I knew that he just put a meatball right over a home plate for me to, it was like, this is amazing that he just said that. And it gave me an opportunity to look as crestfallen as I could and sort of, brush it off and remind him that I was in other stuff and it was a big movie and it did, So it was perfect. I mean, it was really, there were moments where there were scripted moments that he seemed to be ahead of us on, that he kind of led us to.
Yeah.
There's a moment in that opening sequence where we're in the waiting room where Noah, there's an actor named Mekki, he's one of our writers as well, brilliant improv artist, and he plays Noah. He comes in and he says, hey, how do you, I need to get out of this. I'm going on a vacation with my girlfriend. Any ideas of how you can get out of this? And it's scripted that Noah proposes the idea that it's a good idea to present to the judge that you're racist, and that's why you should be let off. And before Mekki could get to that beat, Ronald proposed, hey, I saw this Family Guy episode where the guy says he's racist and tries to get out of jury duty with that.
He also says, I don't know if I necessarily recommend doing this, but...
Sure, yeah. Right. Yeah, no. He was saying it sort of like laughing, like not...
Yeah, don't do that.
Kind of as a joke, of course. He never expected this young man to actually use that tactic. And you see the terror in his eyes when Noah gets up in the voir dire and uses, and that's the strategy that he goes for.
Yeah.
But it was really amazing because, as much as you can prepare for something like this, there's 20, maybe 30% of it that is just like, you just got to be nimble and go with the flow. And if we want Ronald to take a left and he wants to take a right, you got to take a right turn with him and adjust. And that was exciting and, like I said before, absolutely terrifying at the same time.
So how much behind the scenes plotting and scripting was happening while you were filming the show? I think it was 17 days or something like that overall. Would you guys meet in the morning and in the evening to figure out okay, he said this thing, how are we going to use this tomorrow? Or James, you need to set up this thing by making this sort of statement. How much of that was happening?
A regular day on jury duty was the cast would arrive at the courthouse about an hour and a half, 2 hours before Ronald would show up. Mm-hmm. And we would go through the beats of the day. Okay, all right, so today's about this. This is the voir dire. This is where so-and-so will get up, and Marsden will try and get out of jury duty by saying he's a distraction, da-da-da-da. And we'll kind of go over the moments and think, I'm sort of it's like a little mini rehearsal before Ronald gets there. And we'd prepare ourselves for the day as much as we could, and then we would leave, and we would go hide in our vans that were supposed to be taking us to court, or early on, our own cars just around the block, and with the walkie-talkies in the car. And okay, our hero's landed. Cue Marsden's car. He can now come in, and we would start the day. And once you walk into that courtroom, in the courthouse, it's all one take, right?
Yeah.
It's one take, and your beats work or they don't. And at the end of the day, Ronald would get in his car or his van and leave, and we would all leave as well, and we would go hide around the corner and wait for him to clear, and then we would come back to the courthouse and go over the day and what happened. Did anyone notice what he said? Did he say anything that was alarming or that he was suspicious? That beat didn't work, or we didn't get to this beat. We'll save it, put a pin in it, maybe see if we can come back to it tomorrow. And it was just a constant evolution as you went through the process.
You must have just been exhausted after every day.
I was. Everybody was. When you're in this dusty old asbestos like abandoned courthouse with no windows and fluorescent lights, and you're there in character for sometimes 5 hours a day, and doing two things. You're juggling, all right, how do I, push my beats with him? How do I pick my moments with him? How do I make sure I'm not, upsetting the apple cart and still making this believable, still making this funny? And throughout the day, like, you don't want to be the one that screws the whole thing up.
Have you been in touch with him since the show ended?
Yeah, I was actually chatted with him this morning and last night. I mean, It was important to me, and it was important to the producers and the cast and everyone who fell in love with this guy very early on, that our North Star for this whole process was, he's got to know by the end of this that this was fake, but not all of it was fake. Mm-hmm. The friendships that were created, the relationships that he forged through the process of making this show were in fact very real, right? Like our connections to him were organic and authentic and real. And all of us could not sprint fast enough up to him once the reveal happened and give him a big hug and let him know that. I was like, I can't do this. And then let him know it was all fake and go, hey, see you, bud. Nice to meet you. That was cool.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I immediately exchanged numbers. I'm like, I'm here. Let's hang out. Let's grab a beer. Let's talk about the whole thing. And I couldn't just leave him, nor did I want to. I mean, I really did create a real friendship with him. Yeah. And everyone else on the cast did as well.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that was nice is that he gets a reward of like $100,000 at the end. So that sort of,
right. He's
compensated for his time.
But I remember questioning that as well. Because I was so worried that we were going to be doing something ethically wrong, that I was concerned that the check might have been a slap in the face, right? Like you punch someone in the mouth and then like throw cash at them. Oh, yeah. Would it feel like that? Would it feel like that? And most people are like, I think he's going to be happy to get the check, to be honest.
Yeah. But when you guys reveal to him, like you can see like everyone looks really nervous and like it feels really awkward. Like people are like, oh no, what's going to happen? Because it seemed like none of you really wanted to hurt him and like to have him feel like offended by this. But I really enjoyed watching the show. But I have to say, after watching the show, I've been feeling really paranoid about when I'm like out in public and something weird happens. Like I look around, like am I on film? Is someone recording me? Like it gave me especially like the first day afterwards, I had a really weird sensation about it.
Yeah, I think that's a normal reaction. I remember when I first got involved, calling all my friends who are in the improv world. I remember calling Ben Schwartz. And I was like, well, here's the conceit of this show, and it's really ambitious. And what am I doing? I mean, like, am I, is this a good thing to do? His first words out of his mouth were, make sure they're not punking you.
Right.
And I remember thinking that the first week was like, is this an elaborate... Am I the butt of the joke of the whole thing? Yeah. Right? Everyone was questioning their not to get Westworld, but their reality right. as we progressed through the whole thing, because it just could have been anything. And I can imagine even the viewers going home afterwards thinking, "Wow, what if that was me? How would I handle that?" I mean, I know me. I can't even take a surprise birthday party, right? So again, it's like, who knows how this is going to affect him. And I think that's a pretty natural response, to be questioning if people are following you around with cameras, especially nowadays when
there's cameras everywhere. Like everyone's got a camera in their pocket.
There's cameras everywhere, and there's sort of a new blending, a fusion that's going on of like scripted stuff mixed with reality.
Right.
the audience is kind of wanting to see a little bit more of that, right? I mean, we're obsessed with these like court cases with Gwyneth Paltrow and Johnny Depp, and it's like that's our entertainment now.
Yeah.
And so I don't know. I feel like we're sort of steering the ship in that direction in our industry a bit, and maybe we're going to see a lot more of this sort of hidden camera stuff.
We're listening to the interview our producer Sam Brigger recorded with James Marsden, who stars in the new series Jury Duty, which is streaming on Amazon Freevee. We'll hear more of the interview after a break, and John Powers will review a new film he says cuts to the very heart of what's happening in the world right now. I'm Terry Gross, and this is Fresh Air.
Hi, this is Anne-Marie Baldonado, and I work on Fresh Air. Are you enjoying this episode? Hope so, but one thing you won't hear is all the work that went into it behind the scenes.
We have booking producers, editing producers.
We pitch it,
arrange the interview,
figure out where they're going to be, when we're going to do it.
We record much longer than listeners actually hear.
The packet of research that she gets from the producers, it's definitely Terry synthesizing all of that the day of, which, frankly, couldn't be me.
You can hear more about that in our recent bonus episode, where two Fresh Air producers talk about how our show is made. That's available now for Fresh Air Plus listeners, and if you're not one yet, signing up is super easy, and you'll be supporting public media. Learn more at plus.npr.org.
Let's get back to the interview our producer Sam Brigger recorded with actor James Marsden. He stars in the new series Jury Duty, which is on Amazon Freevee. Jury Duty is a fake reality show that takes place in an LA courtroom. Everyone is an actor except for one real person, Ronald Gladden. Ronald believes he's participating in a documentary about jury duty. He doesn't know that everyone around him, the rest of the jury, the judge, the witnesses, are all actors who are improvising. They're all kind of odd, and their behavior is unpredictable. Marsden plays a satirical, self-absorbed version of himself, serving as an alternate juror. Marsden's other recent TV shows include Westworld and Dead to Me. His films include 27 Dresses, The Notebook, the 2007 version of Hairspray, and Disney's Enchanted, where he plays Edward, a satirical take on the Prince Charming type.
I want to play a scene from the movie Enchanted. This is a Disney movie that spoofs the idea of Disney princesses and Prince Charming, like tropes. And you play Prince Edward. You and Giselle, who is played by Amy Adams, actually like live in an animated world, a very Disney world. And the minute you meet, you sing a duet together and fall immediately in love, and you plan to get married. However, your stepmother doesn't want you to marry Giselle, so she pushes her down a magic well, and she lands up in the non-animated, gritty world of New York City. I mean, gritty in a Disney sort of way. But so she meets Patrick Dempsey and starts having feelings for him, and she starts to learn to appreciate her new world. You've also jumped into the well to try to go find her, and here you finally have, and this is at Patrick Dempsey's apartment. He has a daughter, and this is when you see her for the first time.
Giselle!
Edward!
I'm sorry, but could you just be could you just be careful?
You.
What?
You're the one who's been holding my Giselle captive.
Just stay calm.
No!
Have you any last words before I dispatch you?
You have got to be kidding me.
Strange words.
No! 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 These are my friends.
Oh.
This is Morgan. And Robert. This is Edward.
I've been dreaming of a true love's kiss.
He sings too.
And a miss I have begun to miss. Pure and sweet, waiting to complete my love song. Yes, somewhere there's a maid I've never met who was made to finish.
What's wrong?
You're not singing.
Oh. I'm not. Well, I'm sorry. I was thinking.
Thinking?
Before we leave, there's one thing I would love to do.
Oh, well, name it, my love, and it is done.
I want to go on a date.
A date? What's a date?
That's my guest, James Marsden, in the movie Enchanted.
It's so interesting just listening to the audio.
Yeah, it's great audio. So you're doing like a sort of a Prince Charming voice there. Like, what are you doing?
I mean, we went back and looked at all the old Snow Whites and the classic Disney princes and Sleeping Beauty, and they all had this sort of voice, that was like, they loved the sound of their own voice.
Yeah.
And
they loved I'm an actor or something.
Yes, it was very, back in the day in the 40s or whatever, they were just taught to do speech. They had speech lessons and whatever. And with the singing, I mean, I know that was an a cappella bit, but when we actually recorded that song, I had vocal lessons from a coach who was taught operetta-style singing.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of Mario Lanza. It wasn't... because back in the older Disney movies, that's the kind of singing it was. It was operetta. It wasn't your modern Disney style, kind of more pop singing. So it was a style of music or style of singing that I wasn't that familiar with, and had to get up to speed. But yes, it was. I thought Edward was someone who always every statement is as simple or complex as it would be. Not that he was ever saying anything much complex, too complex, but had to be a proclamation, right? Everything. I'll have a bagel, and it had to have an exclamation point at the end of it. And I just think there was such a fun to be had to just be this unabashed, romantic prince who just is in love with being in love. Mm-hmm. He's in love with the idea of Giselle, and he's in love with the sound of his own voice, and just moves through life with just an optimism that's unmatched. Like nothing can, you can't imagine him ever getting cynical about anything. And wow, what a ignorance is bliss kind of way to live, and it was a lot of fun to play because obviously I'm wearing the big giant puffy sleeves and swinging the sword, and the hair is flopping around, and it just it was a blast. It really was so much fun.
You've had quite a few roles where you play like the passed over romantic interest. Like there's this movie. And The Notebook in particular, but you could even say like your character Teddy in Westworld, there's a little bit of that. Like, why did you think that you've had those roles? Were you typecast, do you think?
I don't know. I mean, for a while, it started getting more traction than I ever had intended, right? I mean, there were roles in between all of those big projects where I wasn't playing the guy who doesn't get the girl or the simp or whatever, but it just so happens to be the ones that became big successes. Where there's ones where the roles were, whatever the movies I was playing, the guy who ends up kind of getting cuckolded or whatever you want to call it. And it started to look pathological, like I was choosing these on purpose. And I'm like, no, this is not by design. It just sort of happened that way. So we didn't know Enchanted was going to be just a massive hit. The Notebook became like, this still to this day is incredible how the legs that movie has. And I will say though, nowadays, what I'm getting a lot more of now is she should have ended up with him. There's a lot of people nowadays, like especially a lot of Gen Zers, are like, that was a toxic relationship between Noah and Allie. She should have been with James.
Right. You do some nice singing in that scene. Like it's not like probably the style of singing that you like to do, but and it's when I was watching a lot of your roles, like you actually sing in quite a lot of different roles that you've been in. Like there's this whole season of Ally McBeal where you sing all these tunes. Like first of all, like did you sing a lot as a kid, and like how? I guess you were known in Hollywood as someone who could carry a tune, huh?
Yeah, I think because I've been afforded opportunities to show that I can. Mm-hmm. I mean, with Enchanted and like even Hairspray.
Right, and Hairspray too.
I was singing as a character, so it wasn't really my voice, Mm-hmm. But Ally McBeal was probably the closest thing to what I normally sound like, right? It's more like Harry Connick, kind of Sinatra. Both of whom I grew up emulating.
Yeah, I want to play a little bit of you singing from Ally McBeal, where it sounds like you spent quite a lot of time listening to Frank Sinatra sing "The Lady Is a Tramp," because you're following like his staccato phrasing. So I was wondering if he was a hero of yours as a singer. But before you answer that, let's just hear a little bit of you singing "The Lady Is a Tramp."
She gets hungry for dinner at 8. She loves the theater, doesn't come late. She'd never bother with anyone she'd hate. That's why the lady is a tramp. Doesn't like dice games with barons in her.
So that's just a little bit of
so high.
Yeah, it is high.
I sound like such a kid.
Well, even when you're speaking, when you speak in that show,
man,
you have a higher voice for sure.
In my vibrato is so just like rapid fire. I grew up loving. My mother used to listen to the old standards, and I remember just really gravitating towards the old great American songbook. It was Gershwin and Rodgers and Hart and Sammy Cahn and all these greats. And I loved orchestration, just big, slamming big bands, and I just loved it. One of the reasons I got into Hollywood and I wanted to be an actor is because I always felt like I had a pretty good ear. I started doing like plays and musicals in high school, and it was the first time in my life I felt like I might be good at something. And whether I was right or wrong, it felt like the audience's reaction was positive, and I had so much fun performing. And I was kind of a parrot. I would go to school and I would totally plagiarize, or I wouldn't plagiarize, but I would do Dana Carvey sketches and from SNL. I had all of Eddie Murphy's stand up and like memorized, and I would go to school and do these characters and do impersonations and impressions and get laughs, and it was like a great source of validation for me at the time. And that kind of went into music as well. Like I would sing along with Harry Connick or sing along with Sinatra, and I would kind of try to make myself sound like them. And so it's one of the reasons why I still have a hard time to this day someone saying you're a proper singer, like you're trained. And I feel like I don't know if I'm a singer or if I'm just an impersonator.
That's interesting.
Yeah. But it's always been a talent of mine that I always really enjoy. It's something that I actually, part of me likes that it's not the thing I do for a living, because I can kind of protect it and keep it, just keep it fun without any sort of expectations that you got to put food on the table, you got to sing for your food or whatever. Right. It's just something I enjoy. I love it. I love the expression of it. I love how it feels. And if I weren't an actor, I probably would have pursued a music career. And it would have lasted maybe a couple of weeks.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with actor James Marsden. His newest show from Amazon Freevee is called Jury Duty. More after break. This is Fresh Air. One of your earlier big breaks was on the X-Men franchise. I think there was like 4 movies you were in.
Right.
And you played Cyclops, like, for people who don't know, is a mutant who can shoot lasers out of his eyes. And he has to wear these special visors all the time to keep the lasers from just destroying everything. Like
Ruby quartz plated, yeah.
Yeah. There we go. Ruby quartz plated. So this was probably a great gig to get, but I was wondering if it was a bummer for you to have to act all the time with these goggles on your head. Like your eyes are probably some of your biggest tools if you're an actor. Like was that kind of annoying in some ways?
It was definitely look, it was a gigantic movie.
Yeah.
It was it's hard for me to look back on that and have any complaints at all being involved with that. That said, as an actor, the character is kind of a stiff and a bit of a Boy Scout, and he's meant to be a foil to Hugh Jackman's more, roguish,
right?
Fly by the seat of his pants kind of wild card guy. And then you throw the goggles on top of it. It's like, well,
Yeah.
I don't have much dynamic range here to explore.
Yeah. Like, would you I need to flare my nostrils in the scene to express?
Right. I know. Yeah. Clench my jaw. I remember when we were rehearsing a scene and I didn't have, because we were rehearsing and I didn't have my glasses on, and I was doing the scene. I think it was with Famke and Hugh in the bedroom when he's like, you're going to tell me to stay away from your girl and that whole thing. And it was weirdly wasn't working. Like it was a weird day because we were all trying to figure out, and Brian, the director, was trying to figure out why it's not working and what's the hitch, and and we all of us felt like, oh God, we're getting fired today. This is it. Every one of us. And I remember Hugh saying the same thing to me and Famke saying the same thing, and just all of us were like, we suck. And I remember doing the scene. We came in the next day to rehearse it again, and I didn't have my glasses on. And Brian's like, what are you doing right now? This is absolutely perfect. I was like, well, you're looking me in the eye. I'm giving you something that I can't give you with the visor on. And he was like, oh, right. So then you don't want to overcompensate by using your voice. But it was a little bit of a, it was a speed bump, I guess. Yeah. It wasn't, but again, I can't look back on that experience. I'm so grateful to be a part of it. And it just, shot me out of a cannon at the time. And I was, 26 years old. And everyone in the world knew who the X-Men were at that point. And fulfilling a childhood fantasy. And it put me on the map. It opened up a tremendous amount of opportunities for me. And then I thought, well, now I'm going to go and hopefully find the roles to show everyone that I'm not just that guy.
I'm just wondering, I think it's objectively clear that you're a very attractive person. And I was wondering if you just in your life, did you ever have a realization of that? And that would mean that there would be sort of attention towards you, maybe wanted attention or sometimes unwanted attention.
Yeah, I guess there was a realization at some point. It's so funny though, because I was not that guy growing up. I really was not. I was goofy. I was the silly actor guy doing bits. I didn't know how to get a good haircut. I didn't care what I was wearing. I just, would have my shirt on inside out and mismatching socks. And it just, in Oklahoma, is the girls want the jock who's the quarterback of the football team, is 6'2", corn-fed boy. And I was this 145-pound shrimp who just was I can do a good Mike Myers, It's not the sexiest thing in the world. I just never looked at myself that way. Until I turned about 17. And it sort of started coming into myself, and I started hearing it back from other people. I remember this girlfriend of mine, Leslie, in high school, and she was my pal. We were buddies. And then when I got to senior year of high school, she was like, what happened to you? And I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, you're actually kind of hot now. So it's wait, what? What does that even mean? Right. And I wasn't the guy who was getting the girl in high school, and maybe that's why I was attracted to those roles. But I did realize at some point that, if you accept that as, something that's part of your nature and it can be an absolute asset in this business, then embrace it. Right. And don't lead with it. Don't rely on it as a crutch, and just treat it like it's a bonus, And I remember this acting coach once. I think there was an acting coach who came through Oklahoma once. I took his class, and he looked at me and he goes, you don't need to be thinking just some marquee good looks, superstar. He's like, you need to be thinking Jim Carrey, because you look the way you do, but you need to be something else on the inside. And I was like, yeah, actually, I relate to that way more. Yeah. But, you could weaponize it a little bit in Hollywood. You can just be like, all right, hey, this is a good thing. It's going to snare me some good roles. Right. And then I'm going to show that there's more than meets the eye with my performance or with my take on it. And I never wanted to be the guy who was just cast as the good-looking dude in a leather jacket.
Well, James Marsden, it's been really great having you on. Thanks so much for being on Fresh Air.
Thank you for having me.
James Marsden spoke with Fresh Air producer Sam Brigger. Marsden stars in the new series Jury Duty, which is streaming on Amazon Freevee. This is Fresh Air. Fresh Air's executive producer is Danny Miller. Our technical director is Audrey Bentham. Our engineer today is Adam Staniszewski. Our interviews and reviews are produced and edited by Amy Salet, Phyllis Myers, Sam Brigger, Lauren Krenzel, Heidi Simon, Teresa Madden, Anne-Marie Baldonado, Thea Challoner, Seth Kelly, and Susan Yakundi. Our digital media producer is Molly C.V. Nesper. Roberto Shorrock directs the show. I'm Terry Gross.